Hello students, I hope you all are doing well. As you know, this is an important time with practical exams coming up. So I warmly welcome you all to my YouTube channel Physics Exploring. In today's session, we will cover some of the most important Viva questions related to the practical name, determining the angle of minimum deviation using a prism. So let's get started with the first question. What is the angle of minimum deviation? It is the smallest angle through which light is deviated as it passes through the prism. Second question. What is the purpose of this experiment? To determine the angle of minimum deviation for a given prism and calculate the refractive index. What is the role of the prism in this experiment? The prism refracts lights and the angle of deviation is measured for various angles of incidence. Fourth question. How do you find the angle of minimum deviation experimentally? By adjusting the angle of incidence until the deviation is the smallest, the angle is noted. Fifth question. What is the relationship between the angle of incidence and the angle of deviation? Answer. As the angle of incidence increases, the angle of deviation initially decreases, reaching a minimum, and then increases again. Sixth question. What is the significance of plotting a graph in this experiment? The graph helps to identify the angle of minimum deviation and derive the refractive index. Seventh question. Which graph is plotted in this experiment? A graph of angle of deviation versus angle of incidence is plotted. Eighth question. What does the point of minimum deviation on the graph represent? The point where the deviation is lowest corresponds to the angle of minimum deviation. Ninth question. What is the role of the light source in this experiment? The light source provides a beam that passes to the prism for the measurement of deviation. 10th question. Why it is necessary to use a thin prism in this experiment? A thin prism ensures that the deviation is large enough to measure accurately and behavior is predictable. 11th question. What is the meaning of angle of prism? A. So the angle between the two faces of the prism through which light passes. 12th question. How do you measure the angle of deviation? By using a protractor to measure the angle between the incident and the emergent ray. 13th question. What does the deviation graph look like? It typically shows a U-shaped curve with the minimum point representing the angle of minimum deviation. 14th question. What factors can affect the accuracy of this experiment? So, answer is misalignment of the prism, inaccurate angle measurements, and the external light interference. 15th question. Why is the angle of deviation minimum when the light passes symmetrically through the prism? This symmetry results in equal bending of light at both faces of the prism. 16th question. What happens if the angle of incidence is too large or too small? So deviation will not be minimum and the graph will not show a clear minimum point. 17th question. What is the role of the spectrometer in this experiment? The spectrometer is used to measure the angle of deviation and the angle of incidence accurately. 18th question. What is the importance of determining the refractive index of the prism? So the refractive index helps to characterize the optical properties of the material of the prism. 19th question. What should be done if the graph does not show a clear minimum point? So you will say that you will check the experiment setup for errors and repeat the measurement carefully. Thank you.